ho. Still to work through, there's only about 20 pieces of paper. My special, recommissioned, old special thoughts book. To process, done. Now, I don't mind embarrassing myself. You see, if you know what you want in life, and that's the problem, every flipping white girl, woman, they behave like girls. If you live in a very rural fringe area, I lived 27 years in a place with a population density, in fact it's probably a tenth of the southwest. You need somebody to depend on. And that means one thing. It actually means say what you mean what you say. That used to say Operation Hold EU Hand. If I speak with a middle-aged German woman walking the path, and I've spoken to quite a few, I've had some great chats, and I say to them, do you know any friends who want to get married? I need a passport. And if you just remind them, nothing to do with being German, of course, if you remind them, in the 1930s, 40s, 50s, it was completely normal. You can see many old black and white films, actually, movies, completely normal, to marry somebody for citizenship, eventually. My own daughter, my only family that I recognise, she literally is Europe. 27 years ago I met her mother, just girlfriend. I was bored. No, I wasn't bored. I don't want to be in Britain anymore. I was working for the European Union, aerial photographing in a Piper Chieftain, a 10-seat piston 2-engine aircraft at about 5 kilometres, I suppose. The whole of Poland. They needed new maps. That was the condition of acceding to the European Union. My daughter is Poland, is Europe. There are kind of 3 or 4 other layers to that, in that throughout her childhood, quite rightly, her Polish side of her family, her in-laws, that's her aunties, uncles, all those kinds of people. They would be popping back and forth to Britain all the time. And if they want to stay and do a bit of work, or they want to marry somebody or whatever, no problem. None. Now I've had time to carry on, because I've finished my work. If I really were kind of... Now I look at these cliffs like this from time to time, and I think, yeah, I should just jump off. Really? So yes, where was I? Yeah. 2016, I started to write down plots and plans. Various wonderful sort of friends from the past, female friends dotted around Europe, not a girl in every port. Anyway, I stopped. I'm the only person in the world who's given back a commercial pilot's license when their child was born, or in fact a few months earlier, in that it wasn't compatible for her future. I mean, there's a kind of grey area in terms of if you're... Well, I was based on St. Christopher in the Caribbean, the West Indies. I was the island pilot, one of only about 5 white people in the late 80s. And they all depended on me for flying around the Islander aircraft to get them around to other islands. But anyway, to the point. Yeah, that had... I was plotting. At least when you ask a European acquaintance, don't suppose you might consider. They always turn you down with grace and charm and humour. Anyway, a couple of years ago, I kind of amended it. Say what you mean what you say. And I'm going to give a definition of mindfulness because I'm sick to death of hearing it. I've heard it so many times. It's like a compulsory thing for women to, with their eyes wide open, their eyes are glistening with wow energy, juicy energy, mindfulness. Never works. I've never met one who's mindful. I'm going to explain what mindfulness is now. But yes, so if I were thinking about jumping off that cliff, when you do what I did for 20 years, wasn't it? Just bobbing around all over the world, like to little islands and whatever, just running people around, small aircraft. I never had to show my passport, never. Just never. The customs would sort of, at small airports, they kind of, oh yeah, he's the pilot. They're more interested in making a joke about Margaret Thatcher or something like that. Never had to show my passport. My daughter is the European Union. And not only do I not have an address, which I don't want in Britain, but can't even renew this anyway. This September, it's only just occurred to me, this September this expires. Will I ever renew it? But here's the thing. This September, I mean, when I heard it, I kind of felt like crying. This is what the fuckers have done. To go into Europe, you have to give your fingerprint and, well, what do they say? They actually say a photograph of your eyes. They don't, it's deliberately not saying iris scan. I think probably the iris scan will be, I mean, you have to do an iris scan to go into America. And the queues when you're going into America, you could be at, last time I went through America on transit to the most wonderful country of Bolivia I've ever been to in my life. God, the fucking queue. Because of the fingerprints. You have to do fingerprints and iris scan. Just like 4-hour queues. And they all have machines. They have machines. Miami International Airport's got, it's got about, it's a great big area with about 100 automatic machines where you present your passport and you get your fingerprint and eye photograph. Except guess what? They never work. Like this was in late 2017. None of them will work, or very few of them are working. Absolute, because it's really complicated stuff. Absolute, total and utter bedlam. Anyway, mindfulness. Say what you mean what you say. Now, one person, I didn't know that. I mean, that is literally, I still say, it's a yogi tea bag label. I'd never heard that. I say that's my commandment. And of course you do. I think for most women and people in Britain, that's almost an aggression. It means I'm going to stick by what I said. I remember things I said to people, very few in the year 2010 and 11, and I didn't see them through. Very small things. But that January, I had the worst thing ever. My daughter was stolen properly and hurt in the process. By far the biggest event in my life. Although I've said for some years I would not have 1 second of my life any different. Although I think an objective viewpoint would be that hurt her. Anyway, I hadn't heard that phrase. Many years, and 2010, a man who, nothing to do with me, didn't like people who, like me, are pacifists, for example. Green. 2005, you couldn't say those things. I mean, you certainly could say the second thing now. Anyway, he attacked, and he had to win. He had to win, no matter who he hurt. He did win. Oh, I spent 3 years from 2010. Every second, despite being in great pain, every second to figure a way to get somebody to help me, anyway, to bring in moral authority, whatever. That phrase came into my life in 2005, when that man, I think you have to earn the name stepfather. That man was so attacking, as a judge basically, said so, wrongly. He was always overruled. Anyway, I was at my breakfast table with my daughter, and she used this phrase. And I said, God, that's a good phrase. Who told you that? Where'd you get that from? And she told me, she said his name. Now, particularly at that time, this guy's name was the worst, was to me the angel. In fact, I used to, in my head, call him the angel of death. He really was the angel of death. And 2010, and subsequently, in fact, 2016, there's something on this from a year ago. He's run an assassination squad, subtle, behind one's back. Nothing to do with me. The person in the world, by far, who, if I were to hate somebody, I'd hate him. I don't hate him, I actually pity him. And he gave that. Now, I still, every day, use that as my mantra. That's what mindfulness is. Actual mindfulness. Not made up, oh, I'm so close to nature, and nature's always going to save me, kind of mindfulness. No. Mindfulness is something entirely different. It's actually persisting through true attacks on your soul, which you know are wrong. And of course, in such situations, quite often innocent or even, I actually consider myself actually a bystander to his anguish over many years. Well, no, hardly ever met the guy. I know that I did a good job with a child, full stop. And actually I also know that I became a better person by doing it. Selflessly, no thanks, just proud of myself, always, never 1 second of, I don't want to be doing this. What was I going to say? Yeah, you see, mindfulness is even when they're absolutely life-defining, unfortunately, worst thing ever. Kind of somehow finding a way over time, and you can't get it out of a fucking workshop at 350 quid a weekend. I mean, it's laughable. Retreat. Mindfulness is so you can just, don't even think about it. But I've never even heard anybody else say this. It is actually in one or two, it might even be in a Bob Dylan song. It's in one or two songs, but not even this exact wording. Yeah, that exact wording. That's what mindfulness is. Never waste a second on anybody who's trying to preach to you that they can spread mindfulness into, that they can, well, it's actually almost like they have mindfulness and they're going to scatter it over you like confetti at £350 a retreat, or £50 £20 for a bad book. Never waste a penny, unless they're telling you the real version. One day I need to write my real version, which is basically the last 15 years. Because it's good, because it worked.